Welcome to Humble Ground, a podcast where the heart of agriculture meets the stories that feed the world. Behind every meal is a farmer, a rancher, and a legacy of hard work. Here, we shine a light on their journeys, their challenges, and their triumphs, because every meal has a story, and it's time we heard it.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the next episode of Humble Ground. I'm pretty excited. We're in Indiana today. Scott Beck has taken time to meet with us. This is a phenomenal place. I'm from Kansas, so I've started to see their signs and billboards and marketing, and their marketing is first class. But we really want to dive into the story of Beck's Hybrids and how it got to where it is, because it's not a company that just sells seed, right? They farm their family. I love the faith piece that you put into it. And so we're really just going to dive into stuff. Make sure to share this with your friends, subscribe, like, all that fun stuff. But we're just going to dive into it. And Scott, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. Give me a little bit of history. I was on your website last night at the hotel. And like I said, marketing's phenomenal. Tell me about the early days of Beck's.
Before I was here.
Yeah, way before you were here.
Yeah, so in 1901, my great-grandfather purchased 80 acres of land, and that's where our current headquarters is. So, and he had a passion around seed, but it wasn't until 1937 when hybrid seed became available to farmers in Indiana through Purdue University. And my grandfather and great-grandfather each got a 3-acre allotment and planted that first seed crop and harvested it by hand. And that was the beginning of Beck's Superior Hybrids at the time.
Harvested it by hand. What a difference comparative to today's world.
Yeah, and my aunt tells me the story how she rode on my grandfather's shoulders, and she was about 4 years old, I think, and it was pulled the tassels of that first seed crop. And the next year he got a horse, so she got to ride on the back of a horse going through those rows.
Moving on up in the world, though.
Yeah.
What's really cool is when we were driving in, I assume that White House has some family tie to this particular piece of land. Like, is this the original land?
Yeah, the original land. That was a house that my great-grandfather built. I think it was around 1911, roughly. And my dad lived in that house. I lived in the house until I was about 10. And then we've had other employees and the people living in there since then.
When did it actually become to where, hey, we were getting seed from Purdue in the first hybrid until they said, I think we could make a business of this, or we're going to start doing more with this? Like, what was that particular process?
Well, 1937 was the year that they planted that first seed crop. It had, the parent seed came from Purdue. And so that was the beginning of Beck's Superior Hybrids. And just my grandfather continued to get access to, new and different genetic lines. And then eventually my dad came back in kind of the mid-'60s after getting his master's at Purdue University. And I was born in 1965. We hired our first corn breeder in 1976, I believe. Today, the breeding program is important to us in looking for those new opportunities and differentiation. But the majority of what we sell is through a licensing or a distribution model with the major companies that invest billions a year in research in hybrid development, being Bayer, Corteva, and Syngenta.
Is corn your primary focus, or how much?
Corn and soybeans is our primary focus. A couple of the fastest growing crops for us, percentage-wise, are alfalfa, as we move to the north and Pioneer and Dairyland have pulled out of the kind of the alfalfa business, and also milo. So as we moved west into Kansas, especially, Kansas is our number one state for milo now, and we grew almost 100% in milo sales just this past year. So a lot of obviously that's a very important crop for farmers where they don't get rain.
Yeah, there's a lot of milo. There's a lot of wheat in Kansas. Do you do any wheat?
Mhm. We do soft red winter wheat. We're not into spring or hard red.
Yeah. I love the family aspect of how great grandpa, and how it's grown on the chain. So you would be what, fourth generation technically?
Yes.
Yeah. And now the fifth generation is working in the
Fifth generation is working in the business. We've got the sixth generation on the ground. I've got my wife and I have 4 grandkids, and my sister's got a couple of, and her husband have a couple of grandsons as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting though. And I think you and I were just talking about to make it to where the next generation has something, and the next generation, like, it's crazy to think about, but with now the sixth generation on the ground, like, it's almost like, well, what do we got to be doing in 20 years or, 30 years down the road so that this is sustainable and allows them to have a part in the family business? Like, it's truly incredible. I would love to hit on a little bit. I love your billboards and your trucks and everything. And you talk about faith all the time. How important is that to the family? I would assume that's a pretty big piece. And is that something that was instilled in you as a young age and grandparents, or where did that all come from?
Yeah, I was raised in the church, and something that we did as a family. Didn't really come to personal faith in Christ until right at the end of my college days, and when I really recognized personally that I needed to humble myself,
Sure,
and surrender my life to Christ, and so that was really the beginning of, maybe not the beginning, but the where it became more than just, oh, I was saved. Yeah, it changed, and continuing to seek God's purpose for me since then. But as a company, really, as I observe, we just simply, we're human. We make mistakes. We make bad choices, and that's why we need a Savior. That's why we need grace. And so having an environment where employees can express their faith and really live that out, their own personal journey freely, is really what we've done here. And when I think about, you mentioned the signs, the rolling billboards, founded in faith, forged in America, that really is more of a testament to the environment and our employees, because that was not something that the family or leadership team directed. In fact, the first time many of us saw that message was when it was on a truck rolling down the road.
Wow.
So that's I believe the environment that our employees know that that we're not perfect, but we're also not ashamed of why we need a Savior.
Sure.
And the importance of faith in our life to ground us, to help us understand our purpose.
It's not easy in agriculture.
No.
Like, there are great years. Not going to say there's not.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of years that are super tough. Like, this business would have came up through the 80s, which was a horrible time to be in agriculture.
Yeah.
But made through it, and so you have to have faith that hey, this year might be terrible and next year might be terrible, but you know what? There's something more in the future. And so I love that piece, and I love the employee piece, because you have to have people that are bought into what you're doing. All along, Beck's Hybrid started at that time, and I would like to talk about the actual farm operation. So you're actively farming, and so I think that's a really neat piece that a lot of people probably don't understand. There's a lot of big ag companies out there that are just selling a product. Like, you actually live it every day, and your family has lived it every day for generations.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the farming side. Is that something that's grown over the years? What kind of crops do you guys do? Give us a little bit of history on that.
Dad came back from Purdue in the mid-'60s. He had a professor tell him, good luck. The big companies will eat you up. And so he really took that on as a challenge. And I think for the first few years, worked to build the seeds business, but at the same time recognizing that if it didn't work out, he could still go back and farm. And we're grateful that it worked out and that, we're able to, we're approaching 90 years, as a farming family and in the seed business. And the farming aspect is a very important part of what we do. Land ownership and stewardship of that land is a very important part of what we do because it is our lowest cost of production and a way of building equity in the business to help us survive during tougher economic times. Because, our business mirrors a farmer's business in the sense that, if you look at what commodity prices have done in the last 15 years, we were up at over $8 back in the 2011-12, and then we're down in the $3 and $4 range, and then we're back up to $7 and $8 just a few years ago, and now we're back down into the $4 range on corn. That's a roller coaster, and that we pay attention to that because, we talk about ourselves being farmers at heart, because that is our background. That is still who we are today. But it largely is who our employees are as well. Over half of our employees had some type of a farm experience, and we've got over 1,000 employees now. And there's over 80% that have sometime worked on a farm, even if they didn't grow up on a farm. They have some kind of an affiliation. So we're very attuned. And those that didn't have a farming background, we encourage kind of them being curious and being in touch, going out and riding with the farmer, spending time with, other people in different departments to absorb and learn about what's important to a farmer and why we're making decisions the way we're making them.
No, it's awesome. I think to have a team that half of them or more than half of them have the experience is perfect, because then it's relatable.
Yeah.
But secondly, to give them the grace to go say, hey, if you don't know it, ask a question or go ride with a farmer so we can, because at the end of the day, it's about how do we help farmers more. And I definitely see that in your business. How neat is it to look back at 90 years, which is just crazy. Congratulations on that. And to say, man, what an impact we've been able to help farmers and ranchers, whether that be in, like I said, if you're in alfalfa and you're in these other crops, you're, livestock production, right? And in the food side, whereas corn and soybeans, a lot of times isn't on the food side, but it might be into fuels or whatever it might be into. How cool is it to look back and say, man, this is neat that we get to have an impact in agriculture?
Yeah. And we're not quite to 90, but, the things that really stir us, I know, from my dad, myself, and, is like a lot of the agronomy part, and a program we have called Practical Farm Research, which we're doing there in Salina at our distribution site and PFR site. That's the work that really grounds us agronomically to what the farmer's doing. Because we're testing, I think this year it's like 150 some different products or pieces of equipment or methods that farmers are curious about, but really may not have the resources or the time to spend on testing. And so we're doing that at about 10 locations now. I think 9 of our owned locations, and then we've actually got a few more that we partner with that takes it to about 13. But each year we invest in this. It's over 1,500 acres. It's a few $1 million of investment, in our people and our equipment and the infrastructure to support the information that we have coming out. And it's things that help farmers to make better decisions on products or farming methods or equipment that, and it's unbiased.
Sure.
Because we're not
a lot of bias.
We're not really selling, those things. So, and those that companies want to participate, they sign kind of an agreement. If they're going to be part of this, then they're agreeing that we're going to publish the data, regardless of what it says. And so, that's really that's really unbiased when we can share it, and companies are giving us that permission. But it's things like, one of our most popular things is the row cleaners, and really what it kind of came down to is that in the traditional rubber based or closing wheels, not row cleaners, closing wheels. Anything better than those is better than those. But there's a few that we've tested that are giving multiple bushels of yield, and the payback can be in the first season or two. And so it's things like those. It's things like nitrogen placement, and timing, even herbicide application timing. We're doing things related to, a new thing this year is called green lightning, where we're taking nitrogen out of the air and making a water nitrogen type solution. That's going to be tested, I think, at almost all of our sites. A lot of things that can help farmers. And we have something called PFR proven. And those are products or practices that we've tested for at least 3 years that have a positive return on investment. And obviously with that, you got a positive yield. But that helps farmers to go through a 300 plus page plot book, or when they're searching online, and find the nuggets where they can really hone in and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work, and decide what they want to use.
And I think that's important. We're going to go into a year this year or next year that is a little bit tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to find practices or stuff that, again, is unbiased opinion, because there's a lot of biased opinions out there and everybody can publish their own data, you know. But to say, you know what, they put the time and they put the effort in, maybe I should try that, because you're right. A lot of people don't have the extra money to run their own trials, or the time becomes the biggest problem.
Yeah. So we host at these PFR sites, we host events we call Technology Days. And that's where we invite farmers, don't have to be a customer, to come and look and see and touch and feel and talk with our people and learn a practice. Or, we often say that if you leave here taking one good idea home that you implement, and it makes you money or saves you time or connects you with something else that helps your farming operation, that's helping farmers succeed. That's really, we talk about it, the purpose of our business from a business standpoint is really to help farmers succeed, and that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, and I think it's really neat that, again, you all are farmers, so you can actually say like, hey, we do this every day. It's not we're just selling you a product. We live it every day, and because of that, here's what we've learned. I'd love to talk about how Beck's grew over time. Is that something that it's just had a gradual growth? Or I feel like Beck's in the last 5 years, maybe, I don't know, numbers wise, but I feel like has just exploded. Like I said, two of my buddies, Brady Johnson in Southeast Nebraska and Brady Modemog, I didn't realize they're both the same, down by Abilene, which is by Salina, your new facility. Both of them are involved, and it's cool to see that they both farm, and now they're able to have this other revenue stream through Beck's, which I think's awesome, because you're really helping the farmer again in another way. How did that dealer network grow? Is that just all organic, or was that just in the last 5-10 years? Has that blown up? Because we didn't see Beck's in Kansas, I feel like, until 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, our dealers are they're the face of Beck's in their communities, and we have over 1,000 dealers now. And that really is how the business grows through relationships. And when farmers are attracted to us, or let's say a prospective dealer is attracted to us, the way we do business, the products we have, the service that they receive, and they decide to either become a dealer or customer, that's how the business has grown. We've not gone out to buy another brand and kept that brand alive. We have bought facilities from other companies where they've not had a succession plan, or or didn't need a facility. And that's really been an important part of us being able to invest maybe sometimes pennies on the dollar of what it would take for us to build a facility.
Sure.
But it's really the relationships that are the key. The people that we attract that then attract other people that want to do business with them. And it just continues to grow and multiply. And we've had double-digit growth now, meaning 10% or more on average for, I want to say, about 4 decades. And over the last 50 years, there's only been 4 years when we've not grown. So just continuing to build relationships is the way we've done it.
That's a hard thing to do in agriculture. 50 years and only 4 of them not be great, because ag is, again, roller coaster, I think, is the word you used earlier.
Yes.
And so do you know how many acres, like if I was to say, how many acres was Beck's seed on, or Beck's hybrids on in 2024? Do you know? I would guess
about 11.7 million acres.
I was going to guess it was several million, but I didn't want to throw out a crazy number. I would love to ask a question, because I'm going to guess over the years there's been people that wanted to acquire you just because you've been super successful. And in agriculture, usually, somebody comes along and buys them. Why haven't you taken an acquisition over the years?
It's not really what we've wanted to do. We have a passion for agriculture, for farmers, for being a family-owned and operated business. And I use both those terms, and not just owned, but also operated. And being able to continue doing that. And as I mentioned, well, maybe I didn't mention it yet, but we do have three of our kids are back in the business full time, Corey, Chris, and Jason. And yes, in the past, we have had opportunities where larger companies have come and made us an offer, or, wanted to be able to make us an offer if we ever decided to sell. But, it's kind of funny when farmers will ask, like, do you ever want to sell out? And I say, well, yeah, I hope we sell out of seed every year.
Perfect answer.
Yeah, perfect answer. Yeah. But it's been, we really haven't had any company come and offer to buy us for a long time. I'm talking like a decade or more.
Really?
Yeah. It's just they know who we are, why we're here, and that we're growing, and that if they want to be part of our growth, they have, and this is Bayer, Corteva, Syngenta, they have to be able to offer us really good products to make them, because they're competing with all of their other competitors to get in our lineup. We've got our own breeding program, and one of the best testing programs. I'd put it up against any company's testing program, because we're testing products from each of those companies. And so our team is actually looking at all of our competitors' germplasm, what's in the pipeline, what's currently available, as well as our own program. And we're picking the best from the best in different geographies. And that's a really important part of why we are the best value per dollar spent. Because when most farmers buy from 2 or 3 other companies. And the reasons are good. They want diversity to spread the risk, and there's some relationships that they want to satisfy. Well, we hope we can be the best relationship with them, but we certainly offer the most diversity. And so whenever a farmer is splitting up their order among 2 or 3 or more companies, they're really taking away from what their farm deserves in quantity discounts and maybe other benefits that we provide. And so when they get that key part of reducing risk by coming and planting all Becks, they know they have access to all these different sources of germplasm and traits. They get the diversity answer, and we want to be the kind of the relationship that they really like to do business with.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I've got about 2 or 3 more questions. What's future look like? I know you'd mentioned the 6 generations on the ground. So
yeah,
I'm guessing as grandpa, you would love to see, them get involved and it continue to grow. But what's your future look like here?
Well, we talk about it in a couple ways. One, we say that the more things change, the more they must stay the same. And that really goes back to our foundation. When we talk about who we are as a company and the cultural basis, really it starts with our cornerstones of our desire to honor God in our relationships and business practices and our heart to help others. Those are the cornerstones, and those feed into who our employees are in our attitudes and actions, we call them. So that foundation must stay the same. What's changing and always will change are the methods, the technology, the innovations that help farmers to do more with less, or to just be better stewards, in the environment that we're living in now. And I use that term as a pun because of all the pressures around environmental stewardship and how we use nitrogen, And one of the exciting things that we rolled out a couple of years ago was something called a root reveal and our product characterization research. And root reveal is really going below the surface, where a lot of the insights we think are going to be to helping us unlock every hybrid's potential. Because root architecture, root volume, and root surface area matters when it comes to how we place that, how we select the hybrid, how we place it, and how we manage it. And we're thinking of this in terms of most test plots. We plant on the same day, same population, same nitrogen. We keep everything the same. There is some value in that, where I think, but what that produces is winners and losers in a plot. The way we're thinking about this and starting to talk about it is, what if that root architecture made a difference in how that hybrid performed at that population or that nitrogen rate or timing, and it wasn't as competitive in that test plot environment as it really could be if you put it in with the type of practices and in the soil type where it's going to maximize its return. And so we're looking at root reveal and product characterization as helping us tell the story of where this hybrid wins and where this hybrid can win when we treat it as it's created to be treated. And so that's the work that we're doing, and we're super excited about how that's going to transfer into the future, along with a lot of the way that we live now is through the digital experience. And so our team is working on what a future customer experience will be desired by the customer, and how do we provide that from a digital standpoint. And at the same time, it's really the face-to-face human connections that on the most important things that we do not want to lose. We've not gone to an automated answering service. And I think every farmer and every person appreciates that when they call any of our offices. They're going to talk to a person, and they're going to get redirected to a person during the daytime. Obviously, if they're calling after hours, they're going to we got a place for them to leave a message. But
that's a big deal.
Yeah,
I wish more companies would do that, because I cannot stand waiting on the phone for days.
Well, so many companies, they've got people that have gone through an MBA. So looking at business through just the lens of financial return. And that's where we miss it, because we can make all kinds of decisions that are good for our efficiency, good for productivity, but kind of miss the most important thing, and that's the customer and the customer relationship and what matters to the customer. We're a customer-driven business. That's one of the most costly businesses to be in.
I would have to guess so.
because we could drive our business down to being a low-cost provider, and the customer doesn't get much other than a cheap seed. Or we could focus more of our resources on just product development, but we're not big enough to keep up with a Bayer or Corteva or Syngenta in our annual investments to develop the best products. That's why licensing and distribution is and access to those. I mean, that's what we're providing farmers, is access to that diversity. And it's more efficient for us to do it this way and put our dollars into the customer relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. What's been the hardest thing you've seen over the years in agriculture? Whether that be on the farm side, on the business side, either or. What's been the hardest thing?
The hardest thing? Well, I think I'll just approach it from the very simple aspect that, the amount of resources that it takes for a farmer to put out a crop. And then if they're not plugged into and think about how to best market that crop, that business is very risky because of the ups and downs. And so I think the more that we can do, on our side, it's about helping farmers to produce the most yield, the most economically. And that comes through the diversity of product line that we're offering. But a farmer's going to make decisions about how they market the grain, and that's kind of out of our control. Now we can do things that support that, but the other way that we come along farmers that started about 15 years ago was something we call our reward program. Today it's called Commitment Rewards. And that's a program that we actually, through our customers, are able to pool buying power so that in many cases, the volume of equipment, trucks, tractors, fuel tenders, seed tenders, planters, you name it, we're getting at a national account pricing from a Case or a Ford or Chevy or any of these companies. We're getting very good pricing, and we pass that on to our customers that participate in Commitment Rewards. That buying power especially matters when farmers are tight on their credit and maybe don't have the cash or can't get a loan to go buy the equipment they need. And so farmers that participate in Commitment Rewards with Beck's have a financial advantage over those farmers who don't. That's particularly true during these tougher times. And so that's a way that we partner with farmers. And we can't do it without them. We got to have the farmers saying, yes, Beck's, I like the way you do business. I'll put in my wage that you're going to, or my chip that you're going to get better buying power than I can as an individual.
Yeah.
And so when they make that commitment, and I'll go back to when we started the program. First year it was 4-wheelers and John Deere Gators that we offered farmers. If they spent $50,000 with us, they could take home a 4-wheeler at our Becknology days. Well, we had farmers that came and said, look, we don't farm enough to spend $50,000 in 1 year. What if we told you we'd buy your seed for the next 3 years? We'd spend $50,000 over that time period. Could we take a 4-wheeler home? So we thought about that and just thought, well, we'd have to keep track of that administratively. We'd have to trust that the farmer is going to,
Sure,
come back and buy seed the next 2 years. But if a farmer's asking us to buy seed for 3 years, we'll figure out the administrative part and we'll trust them to do it. And so that became our multi-year agreement in our Commitment Rewards that now accounts for over 80% of our business. Farmers that are in a multi-year agreement.
Wow.
So they've said, I'm trusting you, Beck's, for the next 3 years. I like the products today. I'm trusting that I'm going to like them in 3 years. I'm going to like the pricing, and I'm going to like the service. And so that burden of trust goes both ways. We've got to continue to work to be as good, if not better, 3 years from now. So they'll want to sign up again. And they've got to simply fulfill their commitment that they're going to buy the amount of seed, the dollars of seed over the next 3 years that they committed to. Farmers often want to know, well, what if something happens and I lose some ground and I don't fulfill that dollar commitment in that 3rd year? We'll work with you. Things that happen beyond your control, we work with you.
No, it's like I said, you all do things differently, and I love again the cornerstones that you sit on and preach every day, because I think again it's different, and I think that's obviously why this has grown. But I again love the story so much of that you're still farming your operation. Yeah, you don't just sell properties; you live them every day, and I think that's just a fascinating thing.
Yeah. So about 15 years ago, when I used to plant almost all of our PFR plots. That's why I love to do that. And as my responsibilities were changing, my wife and kids and I, we bought a small farm just a couple miles from here so I could continue to play in the dirt. And they were younger at the time, so I wanted a place to farm with them. And so we still do that today. And this year, we've sometimes partnered with our PFR team, and we're doing that this year with a planter showdown with John Deere, Case, and Fent. So we're going to have a 3-way competition in our field that we do with the kids. So that's going to be fun.
That's awesome. Well, what's last question? And like I said, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, especially now during planting season. It's a little bit busy, but what's been the most rewarding thing about working in agriculture?
It is really rewarding to be able to, because I mean, being raised on the farm and having that farm experience, I look back today, I'll be 60 here in 2 weeks. Or actually, 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
But looking back on my childhood experience, growing up on a farm, and what I learned from that experience, how to deal with adversity, how to know that you only had so much time to get a job done. So you got up early, you stayed up late, you worked hard, and it felt good. It felt good to come home tired and dirty, and then get back up the next day and go back after it. So being able to be in a business that creates value for farm families, just like I grew up in, and having and seeing them succeed with taking the practical farm research ideas that our team has generated and shared, or finding products that work exceptionally well on their farms through our recommendations, or hearing them say how good of a job our people do at taking care of them. That means a lot, to be able to provide that for families that are very similar to the family that I grew up in.
No, I think it's a perfect way to end. Like I said, I love what you've all built, and it's awesome to see it coming in my neck of the woods now, because we'll see a lot more of it. But I want to say thanks so much for taking the time. Everybody listening, we'll put links down below, but make sure to subscribe, share, follow along with Beck's Hybrids, and what the family's doing, and we'll catch you next time.